Hello everyone, my name is Brenda and welcome to my channel, Simply Living Tiny. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been watching my videos, thank you so much for your support and welcome back. Last week I had posted in the community section if you had any questions for me to let me know. So we're going to go over those questions today and I am going to do my best to answer those questions. In case you're new here, I'll give you a little background into my story and how I ended up in a tiny home. In 2019, I started rethinking my housing. I had been renting for years and years, and as you know, with rent, you pay all that money every month, but it's not going towards anything. It's not going towards something that you're going to own. And so that was something that I wanted to start looking into. So I started looking at the housing market and everything was just so expensive and I knew I couldn't afford it on a single income. And for years I have been watching tiny house shows, I've been watching tiny homes on YouTube channels, and I thought, well, maybe that is something that I really need to start looking into. And so early part of 2019, they were having like a tiny house convention, a show that was in Nashville, Tennessee, which wasn't that far from me. And I thought, well, I'll go. And Randy from Incredible Tiny Homes was going to be there. So I really wanted to meet him and talk to him also. So I went down there, walked through some tiny homes, and I thought, I really feel like this is something that I can do. I didn't know for sure it was something I would be able to do because I am a little bit claustrophobic, and I thought, well, maybe I'll feel enclosed and I wouldn't have enough space to move around. I did have that concern. So I went down there, walked through some homes, I talked to Randy, and I thought, I feel like I can do this. I feel like I could live in a tiny home. You had everything that you need. It was just in a smaller footprint. But unfortunately, at that time, Randy, he wasn't able to help with financing. So I had contacted some other tiny home builders, and they were not able to help with financing either. And then one of the channels that I watched on YouTube was a tiny house called Finette, and her tiny home was built by Tumbleweed Tiny House Company. And so I really liked her home, and they're really Tumbleweed Tiny House Company. That's where the tiny homes originated. It started like in 1999. They started doing like sheds and different things like that, and then it just grew from there where they started building a tiny house on wheels. And then everything is kind of branched off from there, their inspiration and their ideas, and helping with the housing crisis of people not being able to afford decent homes, something that they can own one day. And so that's where, and with Tumbleweed Tiny House Company, they're able to help with financing. So I sold everything that I own while they were building my tiny home, and they helped me through the whole process from designing the home to they're really good about communicating. They communicated with the build process. I shared that in the second video that I made about resources, that whenever it was so far along in the process, whenever the foundation of the tiny home, when they started building out the trailer and then putting up the walls, and so they communicated very well with you, and I really like that. But another big factor with them was that they were able to help with financing. In some of the other tiny home companies that I talked to, you had to find your own financing. So I went down that route for a little while. I contacted companies like SoFi was one of them that I contacted. Then I talked to my bank that I had banked with for years, and they just would not give you a loan to build a tiny home. And because it kind of falls into that gray area, It's not really considered a house. It's not really considered like a camper or an RV. And so it's important to find companies that they are RV certified. And so Tumbleweed is the financial company that they use for people who are needing help with financing, like financing a loan for a tiny home, is 21st Mortgage. So that was a big plus to find a tiny house company that has a great reputation. They meet all of the codes. They make sure that all of the codes are being met, that your home is safe, and they offer the ability to finance. And so that's how my story started. So I have been in a tiny home. I moved in October of 2019. And that's just to give you a little bit of background about how I ended up in a tiny home. And I live here with my little dog Buddy. He is a Maltese. He's a mix between a Maltese and a Shih Tzu. And my tiny home, it is parked beside my mother's house on her land. I wanted to share that little bit of background with you in case you are new to Simply Living Tiny. So we'll dive in here with some of these questions. So the first one I have is from Brenda. Hello, Brenda. And I love reading all y'all's comments every week. So Brenda, she asked, did you ever consider moving your tiny home to a community, or did you always know that you would put it on your family's property? And I have been looking into tiny home properties in Tennessee and North Carolina. Do you have any thoughts on these places? Well, because that is something that you really do need to think about, where you're going to be putting your tiny home if you're considering going that route to have a tiny home built. Where are you going to put it? That's a very, very, very important question. So I didn't know in the beginning that I was going to be putting it on my mom's property. I was looking at that was something I was thinking about, so I didn't know if maybe I could put it like in some type of trailer park somewhere where it was legal to park a tiny home. And I know if you're looking at buying your own property and putting a tiny home on your own property, you do have to follow there's a lot of regulations around that. And I don't really know a whole lot to get into and explain that to you today. I do know if you're wanting to purchase a piece of property and put your tiny home on that you'll have to get with your state and even with your county to make sure you're following all of the regulations to put a tiny home on. Because even with RVs, it is not considered a home that you live in, that you're living there full time. So you have to check into like your local state and your local county laws to be able to do that. And so a lot of people end up putting their tiny homes on other people's property. Maybe they'll pay some rent. Sometimes I've heard people, they look for property like on Facebook Marketplace. They'll advertise that they're looking for a piece of property. They have family, they have friends where they can put their tiny home, and a lot of people go that route. And then some people go to tiny home communities. And so whenever I was looking for a place to put my tiny home, my mom said, why don't you just put your tiny home beside my house? And I thought, well, that would be a great idea, because then I'll be close to her. And if she needed anything, I would be right there to help her or help her with, I just be more available because I would be right there beside of her. So that's the route that I went. And if I didn't have my tiny home, if that wasn't an option for me, yes, I would love to live in a tiny home community. And there's been, I watched a channel on YouTube called Tiny House Giant Journey. And she posts on her channel a lot of different tiny home communities. And there's one that I'm really drawn to. So if I ever decided to go that route to a tiny home community, it is called Tiny Tranquility Tiny House Village. It's in Waldport, Oregon. And you know, I love the beach. I just love walking on the beach, and I don't know, it's my happy place besides my tiny home. And it's right there it's like a beach community. They have common areas. They have a nice dog park. It's a wooded area too. And it just looks like a really great community. So if I was looking to put my tiny in a tiny home community, I would be drawn to that. I would definitely want to go and at least check it out and find out a little bit more about it. And then for Brenda's question, she's been thinking about looking at properties in Tennessee, which is where I'm from, and North Carolina. And so in Tennessee, you have, I know, incredible tiny homes. They have like a huge community there, and they're in Kingport, Tennessee, which is closer to the Knoxville side. It's more East Tennessee. And so for like North Carolina, I haven't really looked into North Carolina, but I do know on the YouTube channel I was sharing with you, Tiny House Giant Journey, that she did one in Oconee Bell. It's called Oconee Bell. It's in Mills River, North Carolina. Now that looks like a really nice community there. So yes, I would. Thank you, Brenda, for your question, and I would definitely consider living in a tiny house community. And then I have another question here. This is from Jalen. I'm curious if you've had any pushback from friends or family about your decision to go tiny. Did people think you were making a huge mistake or crazy? I have certainly encountered some negativity from friends and family. She doesn't understand why some people, you know, they have like negative attitudes towards tiny homes. They just don't understand it. And it's not something that they're drawn to. And maybe you have like negative feedback from people just because they don't really understand the concept of tiny homes, and they don't realize that tiny homes are built with the same kind of materials that you're going to be using in a standard home. They are built to last. They're built like homes. You have all of your systems that a regular traditional home has. You have your electric, you have your plumbing, you have your insulation. It is built to last just like a regular home, but it's on a trailer, so it's movable. You can move it anywhere. So if you're changing locations, you can take it with you. And in my book, that's a plus, that you don't have to go through the whole process of if you have a standard traditional home, putting your home on the market, trying to sell your home so you can recoup that money to put it towards where you're relocating. You just need to find a place to park it, and that's a plus. And so, no, Jalen, I didn't. If people thought I was crazy, or if they had like any kind of negative thoughts towards me living in a tiny home, they didn't share that with me. I think it was more of a curiosity. They would want to know a little bit more. Oh, tell me about your tiny home. How'd you end up in a tiny home? Because a lot of people, even if that's not something they're wanting to do, they don't want to live in a tiny home. A lot of people do enjoy watching tiny home YouTube channels and tiny home TV shows because they're intrigued by it. because it is a different way of living, and that draws people's attention to it because it is different. And so, no, I didn't get that kind of feedback, and if people thought that, they didn't share it with me. It was more of, just curiosity. I would describe it more just curiosity, having questions about it. Okay, here is another question from Gina. She's asking if I have any like regular routine maintenance that's required with a tiny. Well, like any home, you do have maintenance. And I did write down a little list of things that I have to do. I shared in one of my episodes about my Luno, so I have to make sure that those filters are clean. In a regular traditional home, you have like your air conditioner filters that you have to change out every so often. So I have to do that with my Lunos, and that's my air exchange in my tiny home to keep that moisture down so I don't have to deal with condensation or any kind of mold issues. And then I also have an air purifier. I do have maintenance with my mini split. I have filters on it that I clean. And then I try to, like, at least once a year, take it apart, clean it really, really good. And then outside on the mini split, I spray that down with the water hose to keep that all clean of debris and things like that. So that's something I have to do. And then I have a water filter that I change out. I have well water, and so I do use a water filter. It's not a water softener, it's a water filter, so I do have to change that out. That's like every 3 to 6 months I change that out. And then on my porch outside, I do have to put like water seal on it. I did that this year. So this year I had a staycation. So on my staycation, that's what I did. I worked on maintenance things that are in the home. And I put new water seal on my porch and on my steps. And then I had, in a previous episode, talked about before I got gutters, the way the rainwater was coming off of the home. And it's turned some of my trim, turned it like it got really dirty looking because of the way that water was coming off. So this year I painted all of the trim on the house, like around the windows, all the white trim. And then the gutters, I cleaned the gutters out this year too. And that was cleaning the gutters out. It was not fun. And I do have maintenance with my compost toilet. You have a fan that runs all the time, so it dries out. Not really a fun subject to talk about. Who wants to talk about toilets? That's part of my maintenance. And so it has a fan that runs all the time to dry your waste. And so I clean that where the fan is. There's like a little screen, like a filter. And so I clean that on a regular basis. Then we have another question here from Missy Lulu. Do you clean the roof to make sure leaves, debris doesn't accumulate before winter comes? Will you get a handyman to check if pipes are insulated okay or need to be re-insulated? Great question. Great question, everybody. So, no, I do not get on the roof. I don't feel safe getting on the roof. But I don't think there's really any maintenance to do on the roof. It's a metal roof, so everything just, the way that it's sloped, everything just comes off the roof. Now, I did get up there and clean the gutters this year. So I haven't measured, but my gutters, I would think, would be like around 13 feet tall. I'm just guessing. And so my mom, she held the ladder at the bottom because it was kind of scary climbing that ladder, cleaning out the gutters. But I was able to get that done this year. And I didn't hire anybody to clean out my gutters. Now, I did look into having the gutter guard put on top of it, so that wouldn't be something that I would have to do. Maybe that's something I can do in the future, but believe it or not, the people that come out and price that for me, and I only have gutters on the front of my house and the back of my house. They're not on the side of the house, and my house is only 30 feet long. So front and back, you're looking at 60 feet of gutters, and it was going to cost more to put the gutter guards on than the actual gutters. And the gutters, even though it's 30 feet in the front and 30 feet in the back, you also have 4 downspouts. And to me, that was just crazy. It was crazy that it was going to cost more to put gutter guards on the gutters than the actual gutter themselves. So I haven't done that yet. So yes, I do climb up. I've done it once. I've climbed up there and cleaned out my gutters. And it was a little bit scary, but once I'm not scared of heights, I'm just scared of falling off of a ladder. I don't want to do that. So the last question that I have is from Aru. This question is, can you please talk about Tumbleweed Tiny Homes financing process? How much do you have to put down, and what's the payback period? Very good question. Thank you so much. With Tumbleweed Tiny House Company, if you're needing help with financing, I went through 21st Mortgage, and the one that financed my loan is through Knoxville, Tennessee, is where they're located. But they did require a 10% down, and I didn't have that 10% to put down towards that loan. So I got another loan. It's called Air Academy, and pay for that 10% down. Air Academy is based out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. So it's very simple because you're dealing with everything online. So they send you e-documents, you read over your documents, and then you can do an electric signature, and then that's your loan process. Everything was very, very simple. And Tumbleweed, they help you through the whole process. You just have to communicate with them what your needs are. Thank you everyone who participated and submitted a question, and I hope that you found these answers very helpful. I really enjoyed reading over all of the questions and answering those for you today, and a lot of those questions were the same questions that I had whenever I was looking at going tiny. Where are you going to park your tiny home? What is involved in the maintenance of a tiny home? How am I going to get financing for the tiny home? All of these were really great questions, and I really appreciate them very, very much. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode. And please leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. And I hope that you go out and you make it a great day. And I hope you have a great week, and you be safe, and God bless, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Bye.